Peace to the gods and the earths and everybody around the world. I'm Russell Norman, and this is the new Swahili TV. Today we have a very, very special guest. None other than the iconic, the legendary, the literary genius, the author of the Spook, who sat by the door, Sam Greenlee. We're going to go in depth into the man, the life, the struggle, and the revolution. So, subscribe right now. I'm your host, Russell Norman, and this is the new Swahili TV.
You had no idea that this book would, this many years later...
I'll tell you how that came into being. I befriended a brother named, a man named Melvin Clay. Melvin Clay Burgers is his full name. He was an actor and writer. And we had a mutual love of jazz. So he was working on a screenplay. I was working on Bad Bad Blues. And he used to bring up pages of his manuscript, and I give him pages of mine. We read it and exchange ideas. So in effect, we had a two-man writer's workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And one day we were smoking a joint, listening to jazz, and I told him about this idea that I had, what at the time I called the nigger who sat by the door.
Nigger who sat by... That was the original title of Spook, who sat by the door. Hold on. For everybody that doesn't know, we want to just really address that revelation. The original title of Spook, who sat by the door, was what?
The nigger who sat by the door. Well, I finally changed because I thought the Spook who sat by the door was more subtle.
And of course, the play on words with the spook.
Exactly.
Now that was just ingenious.
Yeah.
The spook who sat by the door. Was he originally a CIA agent?
Who?
Dan Freeman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it was always CIA.
Right.
Because if he was FBI, you couldn't have used the spook.
Right. No, he was always CIA.
Being that spook is a term for a CIA agent.
Yeah. And when I told Mel about this idea, he said, Sam, what you got now is great, but your idea is dynamite, and it needs to be a film, and I can help you write the screenplay. So I thought about it. He went into Athens,
Greece.
On business. Yeah, we were living on Mykonos at the time.
Oh, you were living on the islands at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when he got back, I gave him the first chapter of The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
How long did it take you to write that book?
About 4 months.
4 months. Mm-hmm. And here it is almost 50 years later. So, in that 4 months, were you an angry, bitter black man at that time?
I was angry, but I wasn't bitter. There's a difference.
Yes, it is.
You know, I went through a period of bitterness, but that came later when they closed down the film and got on my case.
Now, speaking of the film, you wrote the book in '66, and the film was produced in...
We shot it in...
'68?
No, we shot it in 73. Shot it in 72. It was released in 73 and suppressed in 74.
I'm sorry, I meant your book was published in America in '69. And it originally...
Actually 1970, January 1st.
January 1st, 1970.
It first been published in London, March 19th, 1969.
Okay, in London in '69, America 1970.
Right.
And then, a few years later, the film will be produced.
Right.
Now, was there a difference when you dropped the book? Was there a big outcry from the powers that be,
no,
your own black community? Did it go in silence? Did people notice this book when it came out originally?
It's sold by word of mouth.
And you sold over 1 million copies of that book?
Yes.
Okay, so...
And translated in the 6 languages.
What languages?
Finnish, Swedish, German, Japanese, and Italian.
I hear that The Spook Who Sat by the Door is required reading for FBI agents.
It was at a time. I don't know if it is now.
Because your
Years
book
ago,
was...
I was in a bar in the airport and ran across Aubrey Lewis, who had been an All-American running back at Notre Dame.
I'm familiar with him.
And he had also been an FBI agent.
Okay.
And he told me when he was in training at the FBI.
This is Aubrey Lewis, the former athlete.
Yes.
He was an FBI agent.
Yes.
And he had a conversation with you at an airport bar.
Right. And told me that when he went through training, the Spook Who Sat by the Door was required reading. I don't know if that's still true.
Did that boost your ego and make you feel you were doing something right?
Yeah.
I hear that the movie was banned unceremoniously. Take us back to that time on the day that you found out that your movie, which opened to good box office initially, was banned, shut down, no explanation. How did that make you feel? Take us back to that day, please.
Totally frustrated. Didn't know what the hell could be done.
You had to know, though, why.
Yeah.
Of course you knew why.
Sure. You see, we started receiving reports of exhibitors being visited by FBI agents.
Exhibitors?
Yeah.
Moviegoers?
No, the people who own movie theaters, who showed the film.
Oh, wow.
And
the actual owners of these theaters,
right,
just for putting in that film,
right,
they must have had to be in cahoots with you with some type of...
What about cahoots? In some cases, they agreed to take it off because they were convinced. In other cases, they ran it for the full term of the contract. Now, most of those reports, of course, were hearsay. But the manager of McVicker's Theater on State Street, which no longer exists, was a man who had been the manager of the Regal Theater. He and my mother were close friends. And when I went down there to sell some books, they told him I was outside. He invited me into his office and said, for a week, he had been visited by 2 FBI agents who tried to persuade him to take the film off the market. He threw him out of the office. So that's firsthand. The rest of it is hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
We also got a report that a delegation from the FBI finally sat down with the executives of United Artists, who were the distributors, not the producers of the film, as some people feel.
Right.
And they said that they'll take the money out that they had put in it, get a modest profit, and take it off the market. So it opened Labor Day in '73, and by February of '74, it was off the market.
Totally gone.
Totally gone.
You couldn't even... And of course, it wasn't like bootlegs or anything like that was back then.
That came after.
How did your film get to the streets then, even though they banned it? How are we looking at it to this day?
Young brothers would go in with a camcorder like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was me.
Put it on a tripod and point it at the screen and produce VHSs. DVD that didn't exist.
So we had bootleg tapes back then, literally tapes, and that passed through word of mouth.
Yes.
So
and I'm grateful to those bootleggers because they kept the film alive.
That's the underground for you, right?
Exactly. And I'm an underground nigga, supported by underground people.
And of course, you're not terribly rich. You're rich, but not terribly filthy rich.
I'm rich spiritually. Materialistically, I'm broke.
So
I'm
these...
living on food stamps and welfare.
And you were telling me earlier that you can't even get hired by some of these universities to speak and to teach, whether it's screenwriting or filmmaking or black history. And why is that?
Because I'm not the kind of nigga who they hire. I'm their color, but I'm not their kind.
What is their kind? Better yet, what kind of nigga are you?
Free.
Enough said. Anything you would like to say to all of those viewers who supported your film, who love your books and love your poetry? Anything you would like to say to them?
Thanks.
What was the message in The Spook Who Sat by the Door? Coming from the author himself. A lot of people may get it twisted, and probably have, correct? As far as the message in your book.
It's healthier to fight, even if you subdue, than to give up. Now, they have taken sociological surveys on rape victims, male and female, and they discovered that those who resisted, even though they were overcome, were healthier and went through rehab a whole lot better than the ones who submitted. So it's healthier to fight, even if you overcome, than to just give up.
Do you think that the spirit that you were trying to tap into with, in your book, Dan Freeman, coming back to the community on the south side of Chicago, we can get specific. Do you think those type of brothers, that strong revolutionary spirit, is still alive in the streets of Chicago today?
Yeah, but they have no direction. Okay, then.
And you were there before the gangs, before the Gangster Disciples, before the Blackstones and the, you know, everything else, Vice Lords and Solid Four Corner Hustlers, the Latin Kings, before even the Panthers.
Right.
And you were telling me that you even had a part in inspiring the Panthers and their movement. Tell us about that.
Well, many of the chapters, the Spook Who Sat by the Door, require reading, not just for the FBI.
The chapters of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
You couldn't really be a Panther at that time and not have read that book, right?
No.
That wouldn't have made sense, right?
No.
Because that was the first of its time, correct?
Right.
Now, you being back then, I want to just reiterate that. That was the first black revolutionary movie of its kind that cinema had ever seen at that time?
Yeah.
Nothing beforehand. Nothing in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It was you.
The closest thing that came to it was the Battle of Algiers.
And that was a historic.
That was a French production.
But it was about the battle, a war. But it was
It was about the
based on a true story.
It was about the overthrow of French control of Algeria.
With the black soldiers.
Most of them were black soldiers. Algeria is mixed. They got blacks, they got Semites, they got whites. So you can't confine to one race.
And that film was maybe the closest, but nothing like Urban Guerrilla, nothing like Revolutionary, nothing like Black Power Rising Up.
No.
So you were the first. Some people even credit you as, and people might get the term twisted, but as the founder of the genre of blaxploitation. How do you feel about that?
No,